The galaxy was old. Civilizations had risen and fallen for countless ages. Stars had burned bright only to collapse into black silence. Yet through all those endless cycles there were always stories, whispers of a people who once shook the stars themselves. They were called humans. Some said they came from a blue and green world that circled a small yellow star. Others claimed they had no single home, but wandered the void in restless hunger. In every version of the tale, the message was the same. Humans were unlike any other race. They were reckless, stubborn, and impossibly hard to kill. Where others bent under fear, humans stood tall. Where others surrendered, humans fought until their last breath. But those were only stories. The Galactic Council had long ago declared that humans were gone, erased by wars too ancient to remember. Their homeworld was listed as lost, swallowed by fire and silence. Entire archives were sealed, as if the galaxy itself wished to bury the memory. To the young, the word human meant nothing but a ghost story. To the rulers, it was a myth used to frighten children. Still, the elders remembered. They always remembered. In quiet voices around fires on forgotten colonies, they spoke warnings. If the humans ever return, the stars will tremble. Most laughed at such words. To them, the galaxy was civilized now. The council ruled with laws and fleets of steel. Empires obeyed, rebellions were crushed, and order stretched from rim to rim. Surely there was no place left for a race of wild legends. Surely the humans were dead forever. Yet in the shadows of memory, the myth lived on. The stories told of impossible survival. Humans who fought in burning deserts with no water, who climbed mountains of ice with bare hands. They told of humans who tamed worlds marked uninhabitable, turning wastelands into homes. They told of a people who did not fear death because they carried something inside them, something more dangerous than any weapon. Hope. For the Council, hope was a threat. They ruled by fear and silence. A species like humanity, if it still existed, would be their greatest enemy. And so, they erased every trace. Statues were torn down. Records were rewritten. Generations grew up never hearing the name of Earth, but not all knowledge could be destroyed. In the deepest archives hidden in languages nearly forgotten, fragments survived. Old captains of rebel fleets swore that sometimes, in the darkest wars, strange ships had appeared. Black hulls, scarred, with battles unknown, firing weapons unlike any the galaxy had seen. They came, they fought, and they vanished before questions could be asked. Survivors swore the crews were human. The Council called it madness. They said grief and fear made fools believe in ghosts. But the whispers spread, because whispers always do. On the border worlds, children listened with wide eyes. On slave planets, beaten workers held onto the stories as a secret comfort. Even in the heart of the Council's glittering cities, where rebellion seemed impossible, some dared to imagine, what if the humans are still out there? What if they return? The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Far beyond the mapped stars, past the last trading posts and the lonely watchtowers, there were regions of endless night. Nebulae that twisted like shadows, black holes that swallowed whole fleets, graveyards of suns where no light remained. Few ships dared to travel so far. Those who did often never returned. It was there, the stories claimed, that the humans waited, silent, watching, enduring as they always had. The Council said the humans were gone. The rulers said they were myths. The galaxy said they were forgotten. But the truth was simpler. The humans had never died. They had only been waiting, and one day, when the time was right, they would return. The Council chamber was a cathedral of light and stone, built on the richest world of the galaxy. Its walls glowed with the energy of captured suns, and its floor was made of crystal so pure that it shone like ice. Here, rulers of every great species gathered to decide the fate of trillions. To the outside eye, it was a place of wisdom and order. To those inside, it was a theater of power and fear. At the center of the chamber, the High Speaker raised her clawed hand. "The matter of the border colonies is simple," she declared, her voice echoing across the vast hall. "They refuse tribute. They must be corrected. Order must be preserved." A murmur spread through the assembly. Corrected was a word that meant only one thing: punishment. Fleets would burn villages. Soldiers would seize children. Entire planets would be forced to kneel. Among the gathered rulers sat Commander Sale of the Kilari, a young leader with bright golden eyes and wings folded tight against his back. He had fought on those border colonies, had seen the misery of families who could barely feed themselves while the council demanded endless payment. He rose to his feet, his voice steady though his heart pounded. "High Speaker," he said, "how many more worlds must bleed before this council learns mercy? The colonies are not our enemies. They are starving. They ask for aid, not chains." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then laughter erupted. Deep, booming laughs from thick-skinned giants, sharp, hissing laughs from serpent-like delegates. One elder, his face hidden beneath layers of jeweled veils, spoke with cold certainty. "Child, you speak of mercy where none is needed. The colonies exist to serve. Without tribute, the fleets will wither, the council will fall. And as for your dreams of compassion, leave them for myths. Do you also dream of the humans, Commander Sile? Do you expect their ghosts to rise from the void and fight your battles?" The laughter grew louder, grew. The name human was always a joke in this chamber, but Sale did not laugh. His golden eyes narrowed. "You mock," he said softly, "because you are afraid. Afraid of the day when the people will no longer kneel. Afraid of the day when the myths become real." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. The High Speaker slammed her claw against the crystal floor. "Enough. This council fears nothing. Least of all dead legends. Humanity is gone, and those who dream of them waste their breath." The session ended in anger. The delegates returned to their palaces, their fleets, their slaves. But Sale remained, standing on the balcony that overlooked the city of the council world. Below him, towers of steel stretched into the clouds, and ships rose like silver arrows into the sky. It was a world of riches built on bones. He remembered the faces of the colonists, their eyes hollow with hunger, their backs bent under chains, and he felt something dangerous stirring inside him. It was not anger. It was not fear. It was hope. Across the stars, whispers had begun to grow louder. Rebellions sparked like fire in dry grass. On one world, miners refused to dig. On another, farmers hid their harvests instead of sending tribute. The council's soldiers killed many, but still the defiance spread. Each act of resistance was small, but together they became a storm. And in that storm, the old stories returned. Workers whispered to one another in the dark, "The humans will come. They will rise from the void. They will not let us suffer alone." The council laughed at such talk. They said humans were dead and only fools believed otherwise. But deep inside their golden palaces, even the rulers could feel the change in the air. Their fleets were strong. Their armies were countless. But something greater was stirring in the hearts of the oppressed, something they could not control. The council believed they were untouchable. They believed the galaxy itself bent to their will. But Sale knew better. He looked into the endless stars above and whispered words that chilled even his own heart. "They will come back, the humans. And when they do, no wall of crystal and gold will save you. Far beyond the shining worlds of the council, beyond the trade routes and the maps etched into every star chart, there lay a darkness that few dared to cross. It was a region the navigators called the Void, where dead suns drifted like frozen corpses and ancient nebulae twisted like scars in the sky. Most ships that entered never returned. The council declared it a wasteland, a place of nothing. But it was not empty. In that silence, in that endless night, a people had endured. The humans. They had not perished as the galaxy believed. Long ago, when Earth burned and fleets fell, a remnant had escaped. Broken ships, shattered armies, desperate. Families, they had fled into the dark, chased by enemies who thought they would not survive. And perhaps they should not have. No other race could have. The void was poison to life, a maze of collapsed stars, radiation storms, and silence deep enough to drive the mind to madness. But the humans endured. They always endured. Generation after generation, they built new homes in hollowed asteroids on rogue planets drifting between suns and aboard colossal arc ships that became floating cities. They turned ruins into sanctuaries, scavenging what little the void offered and forging what it did not. Every resource was precious. Every breath of air, every drop of water, every spark of fuel was guarded like treasure. Children were raised with one lesson above all: survive. No matter the cost, survive. And survive they did. From the shadows of forgotten wars, they rebuilt fleets. From fragments of alien technology, they forged weapons sharper than anything the Council had ever dreamed of. Their ships became darker, sleeker, built for both war and survival. They were not countless in number, but each one was a fortress, each one a predator of the stars. The humans remembered what the galaxy had tried to erase. They remembered the chains, the betrayals, the fire that had swallowed their world. They passed down the stories as sacred truth. Children grew up learning not only how to farm in vacuum, domes or weld steel in frozen caverns, but also the names of battles fought long before they were born. Every story carried the same promise: one day, we will return. Admiral Helena Cross stood on the bridge of the Terra Eternal, the flagship of the hidden human fleets. Its hull was scarred with centuries of battle and repair, but it stood as a monument to endurance. Through her glass viewports stretched a sea of ships and armada that had grown in secret, forged by generations who knew only exile. Her eyes were hard, but there was sorrow in them too. She had never seen Earth. She had never walked its green forests or breathed its ocean's air. To her, Earth was both a home and a grave. Yet the memory of that world lived inside her, as if it were carved into her blood. Humanity's true world had been stolen, but humanity itself had never died. Behind her, children of the fleet trained in the simulation halls, learning to fly before they could even walk steadily. Young soldiers read histories older than their grandparents, studying the mistakes of the past so they would never be repeated. Engineers worked without rest, pushing the limits of machines, whispering to each other that their day was coming. It was not a question of if. It was only when. The void had shaped them into something stronger than before. They were no longer just the humans of Earth. They were the humans of the stars, tempered by exile, united by purpose. The Council believed them extinct. The galaxy thought them myths. That was their greatest weapon. In the shadows, in the silence, the humans waited. They did not shout their names. They did not announce their presence. They sharpened their claws in the dark, knowing that when they struck, the galaxy would not be ready. Admiral Cross looked into the endless dark, her voice quiet, but fierce. "We are the forgotten," she said. "We are the shadows. But when we rise, the stars will remember our name." And in the silence of the void, 1,000 voices answered her in one whisper that shook like thunder. Humanity endures. The world of Torek was a mining colony, its skies always gray with dust, its ground scarred with endless pits. For generations, its people had labored under the Council's demand for tribute. They dug deep into the stone, pulling out rare metals, only to watch them carried away by Council freighters. In return, they were given almost nothing, barely enough food, hardly enough medicine. Then came the day when Torek refused. The miners had gathered in the square, their hands calloused, their faces blackened with coal dust. A single word passed among them like fire: enough. They would not give more. They would not watch their children starve while the Council feasted on riches. When the Council's soldiers arrived, they expected fear. Instead, they found defiance. The miners barred the gates, women stood shoulder to shoulder with men, and even the children carried stones in their small hands. The punishment was swift. The soldiers opened fire. The screams carried across the colony. Whole families were cut down where they stood. Homes were burned. The Council called it an example, a warning to every other world. Obey, or suffer the same fate. But Torek's ashes did not silence the galaxy. They lit a fire. On distant worlds, news spread through whispers and hidden messages. In the farms of Vera, workers threw down their tools. On the ocean planet Avaris, fishers refused to pay tribute. In the frozen colonies of Nareth, the people raised banners of rebellion. Each act was small, yet each carried the same spirit. The Council is not invincible. We will not kneel forever. Still, the rebels were weak. Their ships were old freighters turned into crude war vessels. Their weapons were stolen or homemade, little more than toys against the Council's massive fleets. Many believed the rebellions would be crushed in months. But then, something strange began to happen. A Council warship patrolling the rim vanished without a trace. Days later, another fleet was ambushed in a silent nebula, its wreckage left drifting among the stars. Survivors told wild stories of black ships appearing from nowhere, striking with weapons no one had ever seen, then vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. They were ghosts, one shaken officer said before the Council silenced him. Ghosts with human faces. The Council dismissed it as madness. They blamed pirates, rebels, anyone but the impossible. Humans are myths, they repeated, their voices sharp with anger. Do not spread lies. But the whispers grew. In the secret halls of the rebellion, commanders spoke in hushed voices. We are not alone. There is someone in the dark, helping us. Commander Sael of the Kalari was the first to say it aloud. These are not pirates, these are not rebels. I believe the humans have returned. His words struck like lightning. Around him the other leaders froze. Some laughed nervously, others trembled, but none could deny the truth that stirred in their hearts. For the oppressed, the name human became hope. On worlds enslaved by the Council, children began drawing strange symbols on the walls, images of a blue sphere, the lost world of Earth. Workers whispered old stories to each other in the dark. The humans will rise from the void. They will fight for us. They will free us. And in the silence of the void, where the hidden armadas waited, the humans listened. They heard the cries of rebellion, the screams of the dying, the whispers of their own name carried on winds of fear and hope. They had hidden for so long, they had endured for generations in shadows, but now the galaxy was calling to them. On the bridge of the Terra Eternal, Admiral Helena Cross stood with her officers. Before her stretched a map of the stars, lit with fires of war. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. The Council believes we are myths, she said. Let us remind them who we are. And so the shadow fleets began to move. The capital world of the Council was a jewel of the galaxy. Its sky was filled with towers of crystal and silver. Its seas glittered with light from 1,000 suns reflected in orbiting mirrors. Around, it stretched the most powerful fleet ever assembled, an ocean of steel and fire meant to remind every world who ruled the stars. On this day, the fleet gathered in greater numbers than ever before. War was spreading across the rim, rebellions sparking like wildfire. The Council had ordered every ship to the capital to prepare for a grand campaign. Soon, they promised, the rebels would be crushed, and the galaxy would remember its masters. Admiral Darek of the Council stood on his command ship, watching rows of battleships fall into formation. Cruisers, carriers, dreadnoughts, all glittering like blades against the night. He smiled coldly. Let them whisper of rebellion, he said. When we are finished, there will be silence again. But silence was not what came. The first tremor was small, a ripple across space that made instruments flicker. Pilots tapped their controls in confusion. Gravitational disturbance detected, one officer reported. No known cause. Then the darkness split open. The void itself seemed to tear apart, and from its wound poured ships. Thousands of them. Black-hulled, scarred by centuries of battles no one remembered, yet bristling with weapons that glowed like suns. They came, in endless waves stretching farther than the eye could see. At their head sailed a giant, so vast it dwarfed even the Council's dreadnoughts. Its hull was etched with ancient marks, and at its prow gleamed a symbol unknown to most of the galaxy. a blue sphere crossed with white lines. Earth, the lost homeworld. The bridge of the council fleet went silent. Every eye stared in disbelief. The myths had taken shape before them. Then a voice thundered across every channel, clear and unshaken. "This is Admiral Helena Cross of the Terran Armada. Humanity has returned." The words struck like lightning. Officers who had laughed at old stories felt their blood run cold. Soldiers who had mocked the name human now whispered it with fear. Even Admiral Derek's smile broke, his face pale as he realized the truth. For a heartbeat, the galaxy held its breath. Then the council gave the only order it knew. Fire. The skies lit up with plasma storms and missile trails. Hundreds of ships unleashed their fury on the human armada. Explosions bloomed like suns. But when the light faded, the humans still stood. Their shields shimmered, their armor burned, but their fleets did not break. The Terran Armada answered. Lances of energy tore through cruisers as if they were made of paper. Rail cannons hurled projectiles at impossible speeds, smashing dreadnoughts apart in single strikes. Human fighters moved like shadows, slipping through defenses and cutting engines with surgical precision. In minutes, dozens of council ships were gone. Entire formations shattered under the storm. And yet the humans did not fire blindly. Civilians in orbiting stations were spared. Transports carrying refugees were left untouched. Every shot was chosen. Every strike was measured. On rebel worlds, the news spread faster than light. Images of the black fleets filled every screen, every square, every hidden base. For the first time in generations, oppressed people lifted their heads and smiled. "They are real," the rebels whispered. "The humans are real." In the council chamber, panic spread. The high speaker shouted for more fleets, more weapons, more power, but the fear in her eyes betrayed her. For centuries, they had mocked the name human. Now that name had returned, not as a whisper, but as thunder rolling across the stars. On the bridge of the Terra Eternal, Admiral Cross stood unflinching. Around her, the fleet pressed forward, driving the council into retreat. She spoke once more, her voice carrying to every corner of the war. "We were forgotten. We were buried in silence. But we endured. And now we rise." The myths had become reality. The shadows had become fire. The humans had returned. The galaxy had not seen war like this in thousands of years. It spread like a storm across the stars, reaching every corner, touching every world. Where once the Council's fleets ruled unchallenged, now they met resistance. And wherever the rebels fought, the humans were there. The Terran Armada moved, like fire through dry grass. Black ships emerged from hidden paths, struck with deadly precision, and vanished again into the void. Council fortresses fell one after another. Planets that had lived in chains for generations suddenly saw their skies filled with human banners. For the first time in memory, the oppressors were afraid, yet the humans were not saviors in shining light. They were warriors hardened by centuries of exile, and their methods carried both awe and fear. When a council fleet refused to surrender, the humans destroyed it without mercy. Entire dreadnoughts cracked apart under their weapons. Soldiers who had once believed themselves untouchable died in moments, never even seeing the faces of their enemy. To the rebels, it was liberation. To the council, it was terror. On the mining moons of Vera, people wept with joy as human soldiers walked their streets, driving away council troops. "We are free," they cried, throwing flowers at their feet. But on the fortress world of Oricol, survivors whispered in dread. The Terran Armada had unleashed weapons that burned the skies and shattered mountains. Thousands died in the crossfire. For some, the humans looked less like saviors and more like storms given flesh. Admiral Helena Cross carried the weight of both truths. On the bridge of the Terra Eternal, she watched the war unfold, her jaw set. "We fight for freedom," she reminded her captains. Not conquest, not revenge. Yet in her heart she knew that to the galaxy, freedom and destruction often looked the same. The council was not idle. Desperation drove them to cruelty. They unleashed forbidden weapons, devices that cracked stars and poisoned worlds. On the world of Thalos, the council burned entire oceans to vapor, drowning the land in storms of fire. On Nerith, they dropped plagues that turned cities into graveyards. They cared nothing for life, only for power. The humans answered with fury. Where the council burned, the Armada struck harder. Where the council poisoned, the Armada purified, with flame. But with every act, the galaxy watched and wondered, were these the protectors of old legends or monsters returned to finish what history had begun? Commander Sale of the Kalari fought beside the humans. He had seen them spare civilians, shield the weak, and share food with starving colonies. He had also seen their rage, silent, cold, unstoppable. To him, they were both saviors and warnings. One night aboard his cruiser, he spoke to Admiral Cross. "The galaxy fears you," he said softly. "Even as they hope for you, they fear what you might become." Cross looked at him with tired eyes. "We are feared because we survived when we were meant to die. We are feared because we fight without surrender. But tell me, Commander, do they fear us, or do they fear what they would see in themselves if they stood as we do?" Sale had no answer. The war raged on. Worlds burned, fleets shattered, and the sky itself seemed to bleed light. Across every system, one truth grew louder. The galaxy would never return to what it had been. Whether humans became saviors or monsters, the age of the Council was ending. On rebel worlds, chants rose in the streets. "The humans have come, the humans will free us." On Council worlds, whispers spread in fear. "The humans are here. The humans will destroy us." Both were true, and as the Terran Armada pressed closer to the Council's fortress world, every star in the galaxy seemed to tremble. The final battle was coming. The clash not just of armies, but of eras. Would the humans rise as liberators? Or would they take their throne as conquerors? The answer waited in fire and blood. The fortress world of the Council was a planet of steel and fire. Its skies were lined with endless cannons, its orbit crowded with fleets of warships. For centuries it had stood as the heart of power, a place no enemy could touch. From here the Council had ruled with fear, sending its commands across the stars. Every world had bowed. Every voice had been silenced. But now the sky above the fortress burned. The Terran Armada had come. Black ships filled the horizon, thousands upon thousands, their hulls glowing with the scars of battle. At the front loomed the Terra Eternal, vast as a city casting its shadow across the planet. The galaxy held its breath as the two greatest fleets in history faced one another. On the Council's command deck, the High Speaker screamed orders. "Destroy them. Burn them from the stars." Her voice was sharp with fear. Around her, officers worked in panic, sending fleets forward in desperate waves. Admiral Helena Cross stood calmly on the bridge of her flagship. Her eyes never wavered, her voice steady. "Advance," she commanded. The battle began like thunder. The Council's ships hurled storms of plasma and fire, enough to tear moons apart. The humans answered with lances of energy and cannons that struck with the force of meteors. Explosions lit the void, brighter than suns. Cruisers broke apart, dreadnoughts split in two, and fighters danced like sparks in a storm. For hours the battle raged. The Council's numbers were vast, but the humans were unbreakable. Every ship fought with the strength of a world behind it, every soldier carrying centuries of fury and hope. Where one vessel fell, another surged forward. Where one wing broke, another struck harder. Commander Sale of the Kalari fought beside them, his people's ships weaving among the Armada. He had never seen war like this, never seen courage so fierce. He realized then why the galaxy had feared the humans, because they were more than soldiers. They were a force of will. The Council unleashed its final weapon. From the surface of the fortress world rose a cannon the size of a mountain, its core burning with forbidden energy. It fired into the heavens, a beam strong enough to tear open space itself. A dozen human ships were erased in a single flash. For a moment, victory seemed within the Council's grasp. But the humans did not falter. The Terra Eternal surged forward, shields burning, weapons blazing. It led the Armada straight into the heart of the enemy fire. Now, Admiral Cross commanded. The fleet focused every gun on the cannon below. Wave after wave of fire struck. The mountain split. The cannon shattered. The fortress shook as flames rose from its core. The Council's fleets broke. Ships fled in chaos. The High Speaker's final order, fight to the last, was lost in the screams of retreat. And then, silence. The fortress world fell. Its skies cleared. Its fire died. The Council was no more. Across the galaxy, the news spread like light through darkness. On slave worlds, chains were broken. On rebel planets, banners of freedom rose. On every world and every language, the same words were spoken. The humans have returned. But humanity did not claim a throne. From the bridge of the Terra Eternal, Admiral Cross spoke to the stars. Her message echoed through every channel, reaching every ear. "We do not come as rulers," she said. "We do not come as conquerors. We come as a reminder. Freedom is not given. It is taken by those who dare to fight. You believed us myths. You tried to bury us. But we endured, and we will not let the galaxy fall to chains again." When her words ended, the Armada did not remain. One by one, the black ships turned and vanished back into the void. They had come like storms, and like storms, they disappeared, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed. On every world, from the richest city to the poorest colony, people whispered the same promise. The humans are real. The humans endure. The humans will return when the stars need them again. And so, a new age began. The age of fear was gone. The age of myths had become truth. The day humanity rose from the void was the day the galaxy changed forever.